Hello, I'm Heidi Ergens. I'm here at a gathering of dowsers. Every 2 years, the West Coast Dowsing Conference comes to Santa Cruz. I had a chance to talk with some of those dowsers, many of them master dowsers. We talked about things like, how do you dowse? How do you make your dowsing more accurate? What can you use dowsing for? I know that by watching this program, you can pick up a few tips on how to make your life easier with dowsing.
I would explain how dowsing works as a way of reading out what our intuition is telling us, what we already know, but we don't know we know. I'll say that again. We are learning what we know, but we don't know that we know it. And that's a very important thing, because the dowsing instrument will give you your intuition. Basically, that's what we do in dowsing.
Well, I think we're dowsing constantly. I don't think it works. I think it just is. But when I'm teaching dowsing, I just have to say over and over again, don't think, don't analyze, just let your body and the world tell you how to do this. And so that's how it works for me. I can't afford to to take ownership in any part of it. I just let it happen. And that's the hardest thing to teach, is to let it happen. And sometimes, when you're teaching someone how to use the L rods or the Y rod, and I've either put a thought pattern out that there's water here or there is, and the rods won't go down or they won't cross. And all I have to do is put my hands on their shoulders and say, it's fine, just let it go. Just let it do its stuff. And then it'll work for them. But it's too easy that way. They want it to be complicated. They want to suffer. I just suffer to get to know how to do this. And you don't. You can just do it. And I don't know how it works. I really believe that there's a frequency, in the old band radios, if you would dial to the end of the frequency, there'd be that white static. I think that's like a dowsing frequency. That's where you need to go, is to just leave this alone, leave this, and you don't have to consciously say, I'm getting out of present time and I'm leaving these plants and dowsing. You just have to focus, hold an image of what you're looking for. That's the bottom line. Hold that image, trust your body energy and the electricity of the planet to all work together, and off you go.
So there's only one self or one God or one consciousness. That's all there is. And it takes on all these lovely shapes and forms, including you and me and the flowers and the day and the people. So some of the dowsers call it the field. In yoga, which I'm from, we call it the self or consciousness. It's just one. So that means everything's known. And yoga also teaches us there's no future and there's no past, there's just now, which is really cool. So when you dowse, see, the way Robert taught me dowsing was I installed volitionally a subroutine that my arm would move in a certain way for yes or no, and whatever the other responses are. It's called a programmed response. So that's in there. And so then when I ask the question, all I have to do is not have an opinion, not be invested in the outcome. If I am, then I'm going to get what I want, which is not so good. So as long as I don't have any attachment, then I'm asking all that is, where is the right doctor? Where is my ring? Where is the whatever? And consciousness knows, because there's only one knowing source. So how can it ever be wrong? It knows everything. So it's extraordinarily impersonal, but very personal when you're dowsing.
My training is actually as a shaman, and the word divining is working with spirits, and shamans work with spirits, and that's what we're trained to do, is understand the unseen world. And so in the shamanic traditions, you learn about east, west, north, and south, and they're associated with eagle and cougar and bear and buffalo or any other kind of animal. depending on the tradition and the culture. Also associated with different colors, perhaps, you know. And then in the dowsing, you know, if you think about Walt Wood's, you know, chart, it's a wheel, and the wheel has different degrees on it that represent different frequencies. So divining those energies, or understanding what divine energies are, is, you know, we label it all sorts of different things. Sometimes frequencies, sometimes animals, whatever. But we're communicating with the unseen energies around us, and those also, you know, in general, reflect the electromagnetic spectrum, which is what creates the universe around us. So the Aboriginal people in Australia have something called the rainbow serpent. And they've done a lot of research where they realize that the rainbow serpent actually represents the visible and invisible spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. So when they talk about the dream time, dreaming things into being, they would dream the frequency of the tree, and then the next day the tree would appear, and they'd dream the frequency of the cloud, and the cloud would appear. And it's the same thing when you dowse. You're divining, you're asking for the frequency of whatever, for healing or for water or for whatever, and you come in contact with it and you find water, or you change one state of being to another. So I think sometimes my approach is kind of practical, but you know, but dowsing to me is it's a spiritual, but also it's a physical tool that helps us navigate our world.
I think that dowsing is a way of getting in touch with your inner guidance. We all have the knowledge within us, or the availability of tapping into the knowledge of what we need to know. But it is a way of finding something that you have no conscious knowledge of. The rods give you the printout. You ask the question, the rods move, they give you the printout, which is the answer. And as humans, we need to see something physical before we can believe that it's actual, until we get, so we can trust that gut feeling that we have, that little inner guidance, that guide that we have within each of us, that small, still voice. And the dowsing rods give us the reaction that does that for us. See it and you will believe it.
I think that it is incidentally, we haven't mentioned that it is a very healthy physical activity, because the action of dowsing, when you get the answer and the neurons fire, it's all across all the parts of the brain. And this has been shown many times with the simple electrode hookups. And the needles all move at once, and therefore it's a balancing exercise. So the more you do it, the healthier the whole thing is likely to be. I do think that it is, since it is asking for a hunch, you are employing the disciplined mind to go into the mysterious other side of your awareness and fetch out an answer, and then process it through a system that answers the question that you asked, and then give you a micromuscular reaction through whatever part of your body you're using to move your instrument, or just move the fingers or toes or whatever you're doing. So I think that it is, again, even the actual physical response of the rods is a whole body experience. It's the expression of the answer that goes back to the question, that goes to the other side of the mind and comes back. Now, where the information comes from, you have to ask somebody who studied the Akashic records or the spiritual sources. But how it works is simple.
The tools that we use are merely readout devices. We call them instruments. We teach how to use the dowsing instruments. And those tools have no magic in them at all. They are just your readout device. For me, the tool that I use has to be comfortable, has to be responsive to what I know I'm receiving, and simply properly responding. So I use very simple tools.
There's sound we hear within the the range of our ears, and then there's sound that we can't hear. So that's why dogs hear a whistle that we can't hear. So when you spin the pendulum, that's creating a sound. And we don't necessarily hear it. Unless the pendulum is so big, we actually hear the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of the moving of the pendulum. And that sound wave, I mean, sound waves compress space. That's what sound waves do. And as it goes out, it carries information. So you can use it as a carrier wave for an intention or something you want to manifest or something you want to heal.
I use dowsing for a wide variety of things, but the main thing I use it for is to dowse the life force of the foods that I eat. I also dowse for any pharmaceuticals to see if the side effects are now beginning to be a problem, and other items like vitamins, minerals, and I keep track of my vitamins and minerals with dowsing. And there are times where I no longer need some of these things. So if you just take your vitamins by tossing them into your mouth, you probably are doing yourself a disservice. And dowsing is just wonderful to keep up to date on providing your body the best possible nutrition.
And I dowse for everything. I believe if you can dowse for anything. If you'll practice, if you'll teach yourself how to do it. I mean, somebody calls me and says, will you dowse for my dog that I lost in the woods, you know? And it's tough to, that's the hardest thing, is to find an animal, because they leave a thought pattern everywhere they go. So you can't know if they're here now, they may be there some 15 minutes later. So it's hard to do that, but I'll take that on. I think on anything. Recently I did a dowsing job for some people in Monterrey, Mexico, who were trying to decide to go into a cave. There are 5 caves they're considering, looking for gold treasure that was buried there in the 1600s, and supposedly it's still there. And so they had me dowse all the caves to figure out which one they should go into. But in my dowsing, I ask questions like, is it protected by thought patterns? Is it protected by the people who put it there with snakes or spiders or whatever? It was covered in protection. So I told them, I marked the cave that I suspected. One of the caves was too unsafe. The cave wasn't stable, and don't go there. But I just wrote to him and said, it was young men in their 20s. And I said, if I were your mom, I'd say don't go near there. Because it's on a like 6,000 acre mountainous area already with, and that's not a good country. So since I'm not about to go to Mexico right now, I mapped out the whole thing. And they were delighted because they'd never heard of such a thing, and they didn't know how they could get me to Monterey to do the dowsing, and there's no way you're going to get me. I loved Monterey years ago, but not now. So that's that.
What did you find?
I was trying to ask the trees how old they were.
How old did they say?
Oh, I don't know. They said like they were connected to their cousins up north, and they were more than 100, 125.
Wow.
Stopped at 150.
Stopped at 150?
Yeah, I started to go the other direction.
Well, as a master gardener, I actually use my dowsing to determine where I plant different plants in my yard, to see what to plant in the yard, if they're going to be happy where I think they might be.
I'm sure there are dowsers that are farmers. My father was a farmer. Mm-hmm. He did dowsing, but he only used it to find water.
Only to find water, though.
It never occurred to him to dowse, well, what can I do to the soil?
Yeah.
So I use dowsing now as a, well, it's twofold. One of it is design and understanding. So, I try to understand what energy is doing around me, because I think that's the most important thing we need to do as dowsers and as anybody who does any kind of work. If we don't know what the energy is doing, we have really no business mucking around with it. And then the other thing is designing, because I mean my whole path is the creative process. So I design products to modulate energy, to navigate our lives more efficiently and better. Because technology is here to stay. I mean, we might have peaks and valleys with it. We have a huge learning curve with it. But really, we have to figure out how to use it safely and effectively and efficiently and in a way that doesn't harm ourselves and other beings and our environment. So that's really what I work towards is with my dowsing, is how do I understand these things and how can it help me calibrate and create things that help our planet.
I do a lot of dowsing for people who call me to make life decisions. They want to know where would be the most opportune place, the best place for them to live, to move. People call me about moving from one house to another house at times. I don't do health dowsing. Knowingly, I don't do it. But you can use dowsing for yourself, for health, and I do, to find physicians that I think would be compatible with me. I use dowsing to clear, I call it adverse energy. Any energy that is harming the people that I'm working with is very, very important to me, that I be able to move the adverse, the harmful energies, because energy is just energy. It's neither good or bad. It's how we receive it or perceive it that makes it one way or the other. And everyone doesn't feel the energy the same way. So I only divert it from their space, be it their property, be it their house, be it their physical body. To me, an adverse energy is even a disease. So I can clear that, with the dowsing method that I use.
Well, there are some people who are very good in certain dowsing, certain types of dowsing. Some of them are very good in doing the type of dowsing where I look for energies in people's bodies. Others are much better in finding things. I know that I cannot find things with a pendulum. That just is not part of my passion. It is part of other people's passion. So often I think dowsers are good in certain circumstances, like finding water or finding lost objects or connecting with lost souls somewhere. But a whole part of that is what is their passion. And dowsers will usually develop an expertise in something that they are very passionate about and are totally inaccurate in everything else.
You want to be in a relaxed state of mind. I need to be in a relaxed state of mind, and I want to do some sort of a prayer or a preparation, because the dowsing mind state is so unique, and all of us just dropped into this 4-pattern brainwave state. So you want to enable that so that it's on and running. And then you want to be sure that you ask the right question correctly. And often I will tell people, write out your question. Physically write it out. Examine it. Don't just dowse it right away. Examine it for problems. And the question is essential. If you ask the right question correctly, you will get valid answers. If you ask your question wrong, your answer is very likely to be wrong, incorrect, and misleading to what you're trying to find out.
If you don't practice, it's like a muscle. It'll atrophy. You have to work it. You have to practice every day. When I first learned radiesthesia, I would go home and I'd do all kinds of things. I'd stick stuff in envelopes and mess them up around on the table, and I'd try to find what I was looking for. And I always challenged myself, and I always practiced. because that's the only way you get better at it, and that's the only way you stay being efficient with it.
So my best exercises for new students is to take, and I think you can still get them at places that still develop film. I have probably 200 film cartridges from the old 35mm film, and I write on it what I'm dowsing about. The client doesn't know. I say, okay, hold this, be strong, and then I get a true answer, because the mind-body connection can't make a connection, and well, it can't fake a connection, I should say. So for practice in the early days of learning to dowse and building your confidence, I have them put like a quarter and a nickel and a dime in the cartridges, or as many coins as you can think of, and spread them out in front of you, squiggle them around so you don't know they're there, and then look for one of them. Like, say you're looking just for the quarter, and hold your rod over it and ask for it to give you a reaction if that's the quarter, and go for your first reaction. Like, any kind of psychic thing you get, you got to go with the first response, because that's the real one. And so when you get that first response, then open it. If you get it wrong for 2 to 3 days, you're trying to think. You're really trying to, okay, I think it must be this one. And so do that either with a nail rod or your pendulum. I don't use the pendulum because I'm just not good at it. And I still like to use the hot hand to make sure my body still doesn't need a tool. And then also just to put them under a cloth that you can't see through, and dowse for where things are, or hide stuff. When I teach a class, I have everybody who comes in, I have a big room in the back, which is the teaching room, and then the front of it is an old house that other people use as therapy room. And so I have everyone who comes in bring something small, take it up front and hide it, and then write on a whiteboard what it was, and then we have maps drawn of the front part of the house. And then I teach them to map dowse very quickly, and then they take their tool and go in the front, and whatever you find, you get to keep.
And there's another technique that works really well. It's called the I wonder technique. The I wonder technique says, I wonder what my answer is going to be. Now, if I wonder about something, I am not really in focused attention. I'm more in the alpha brainwave state. I'm wondering, I'm just sort of a little bit dreamy, but the focused attention is there because I have already asked my question. And so I use 2 words for this. The 2 words are receptive neutrality. Receptive neutrality. I am receptive to my answers, and I am neutral to my answers. If I have this big well with 200, 300 gallons a minute, I am not jumping up and down saying, oh, my client's going to be so happy, it's wonderful. What happens then? I just took myself completely out of dowsing mind state, and the next question I ask in dowsing is going to have a wrong answer. So you can't do that. It's not advisable at all.
So it's just asking questions.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important thing.
That is the most important. That's 90 or more % of your accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can swing the pendulum and get a response. It's all what you ask.
Yeah.
And if you think you're getting erroneous answers, then analyze your question.
Yeah.
It's probably an erroneous question. You're asking something that you think you're...
Just like life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just like life.
When you start dowsing, ask to have an experience which will get over the doubts. Every new dowser has some doubts. What is making this move? My story about that was I had learned how to dowse, and I asked the universe to please tell me that I'm doing this correctly. So I had gone to a store because I needed a boombox to listen to some of the tapes that my mother had made, some of the cassette tapes. And I dowsed every boombox in the store. Was it going to last? Did it have good sound? Would I be happy with this? Is there something wrong with it? Etc. So finally, I had a boombox that all my criteria met all my criteria, and I was ready to buy it. And I gave one more question: should I buy this boombox? And I got a no. I was very upset because I had just invested a lot of time finding the right boombox. But one of the rules of dowsing is when you ask, and if it says no, you walk away. Do not go against what the dowsing advice is. Otherwise, you lose that connection to the universe. So I walked out of the store, went into another store to buy some towels, walked by that store's boombox section, and found my boombox on sale for 30% off. I went and asked, should I buy it? It said yes. I was stunned. I was totally stunned, and I said, thank you, universe, because that was what I needed to prove to me that the universe is listening, that my dowsing works. And so I tell all my students, ask for that experience, and you'll get it.
So, and then you would just ask it, what kind of question would you ask? Say you were looking through your car keys.
Okay, then I would say, just like Ed did, when he said, take me the easiest route or the best route for me to my car keys.
Okay.
And if you have two sets of car keys, specify which one.
Okay.
The ones that are lost.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, and then just follow it.
Okay, great.
And if you have to go up the stairs to get to it, it'll take you that way.
It will. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
I encourage people to dowse and to learn to dowse, and I encourage them to most of all learn to dowse for water, because it's an important aspect of who we are and of what we do need in our world is good potable water.
When we learn something that's really valuable, something like dowsing, it really needs to be, as encouraged towards young people, young minds. I can't stress that enough. It's even in the shamanic traditions and the indigenous tradition, it's the young people we really need to focus all this energy on. So whenever I can, I try to teach kids. Like when I leave this conference, actually I'm going home, and for 3 weeks in a row I'm going to have 20 kids at my disposal to teach them dowsing and magic and all kinds of stuff. And to me that's where it really needs to go.
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for future episodes. And remember, when in doubt, just dowse it.